This meeting is being held in compliance with the Brown Act. SCAG offices are open for members of the public to attend and participate in person. Instructions for providing public comment have been provided in advance and are also included in the agenda packet. If a member of this body is attending remotely but is not at a location specified on the agenda, they may observe and comment as a member of the public, but may not participate in any member discussion or voting of this body. For all members participating remotely, please ensure your microphone is muted when not in use. Please state your name during deliberations and whether making a motion or offering a second. Any voting member or member of the public calling into this meeting by telephone can press *6 to mute and unmute. All telephone participants should identify themselves prior to speaking. SCAG encourages all members of the public to participate in its meetings. We are committed to holding meetings accessible to people with disabilities. For members of the public requiring ADA accommodation, please call 213-236-1895. SCAG offers free interpretation services for members of the public needing information in another language. Please call 213-236-1895. The meeting will now begin.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Today is Tuesday, June 16th, and the time is 8:32. And we are calling the Legislative Communications and Membership Committee to order right now. And just as a quick reminder, if any member of this body is attending remotely but is not at a location specified on the agenda, they may observe and comment as a member of the public, but may not participate in any member discussion or voting of this body. Okay, I believe I have asked Gary Gardner if he would go ahead and lead us in the pledge.
All right, everybody, there's our flag. Place your hand over your heart. Join me in saluting our nation's flag. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you very much, Gary. Much appreciated. Okay. Let's see. So we are going to ask the clerk now if we have a quorum for this meeting.
I am confirming that we have met quorum as of 8:30 this morning.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, now we also, let's see, Kevin, is Mr. Pimentel on?
I think that he is just about to jump back on the meeting, Madam Chair. I think his internet just went down, of course.
Okay.
If we gave him just 1 minute, he'll be right back with us.
Okay, well, I'll open the general public comment of the meeting. This is the time for members of the public to offer comment on matters that are within SCAG's jurisdiction, but are not listed on the agenda. Staff, have we received any public comment?
I did not receive any public comments before or after the 5 p.m. deadline.
Okay, and do we have any members of the public who wish to speak?
Madam Chair, no members of the public in person and no hands raised via Zoom.
Okay, thank you. So we'll close public comment now for matters not listed on the agenda. And we have a real treat for us this morning. We have Mr. Michael Pimentel, Executive Director of the CTA, or California Transit Association, representing more than 85 public transit and rail agencies statewide. In this role, he leads statewide advocacy and member education efforts focused on transportation funding, climate policy, and air quality. Mr. Pimentel helped lead advocacy efforts opposing CARB's recently adopted amendments to the Cap and Invest program, which are estimated to reduce greenhouse gas reduction fund revenue by $2 billion annually, essentially zeroing out funding for key programs such as affordable housing and sustainable communities and the transit and intercity rail capital program. He is joining us this morning to discuss the details of exactly what was included in CARB's amendment and what is being done now to mitigate the expected impacts on funding. And is Mr. Pimentel on right now?
I don't quite see him yet. If I could just ask for AV's help to promote Michael to panelist mode.
I don't see him on the attendee side yet.
You know, something just popped up on my screen that was sort of weird. It said for the SCAG meeting, somebody is in Teams and I need to let them in.
You know,
I haven't
Member
seen that.
Harnick, we did just see Michael in the we did just see him in the Zoom call before his service dropped. So I think that he's just having a connectivity. I recommend maybe could we move on to the consent calendar, Madam Chair, and then Michael and I will figure this out.
And may I ask, I just got this message in Microsoft Teams, Legislative Communications and Membership. Someone is waiting in the lobby, join the meeting to let them in. So maybe AV can, I don't know what that's about.
I'll tell you what, Member Harn, I'll figure that out, but I'm
Okay.
pleased to show that Michael Pimentel has joined the meeting right now, so we can move
Perfect.
right into that if you're ready, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and go right to, well, first of all, review and prioritize agenda items. Do we have any people that would like to do that? Okay, then let's go to consent. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on this item?
Chair, there are no hands raised via Zoom and no members of the public in person wishing to speak.
Okay, and I see, let's, you know what, we're going to go ahead and I see Mr. Pimentel is on right now. So, and I know you have a hard stop at 9 o'clock. So let's just go ahead and take that and then we'll go back to the consent calendar. I've already introduced you and read some of your amazing background. So, Mr. Pimentel, if you would like to speak with us right now, and then we'll have maybe enough time to have the members ask a few questions before you take off.
Sure thing. Well, Madam Chair, good to be with you this morning. Folks, appreciate the opportunity to present to you today, give you a bit of an update on the Cap and Invest program. I'm going to start with a little bit of history just because I think it grounds us in the conversation around next steps and engagement opportunities for us as an industry. I'm taking that industry in very broad terms, representing both transit agencies, MPOs, and RTPAs within my California Transit Association membership. And so what I'm presenting on the screen is a brief synthesis of the amendments that were first advanced by CARB in mid-April this year, amendments that are working to implement changes to the Cap and Trade, now Cap and Invest program based on action taken by the California State Legislature and Governor Newsom last year. Now, I'm not going to go into all the details that are presented on the screen, but what I did want to highlight for you is that these amendments move forward with a series of fairly significant changes to the program that are intended to address two things. One is industry leakage from California. That is organizations like refineries, like major manufacturing companies leaving the state, taking not only their jobs, but their missions with them. And then also the work that's necessary to address affordability for Californians. Now, as we had seen these amendments advance, we as an association we're privileged to have some briefings with CARB staff and then later with legislative staff, where we learned that, well, certainly the interest to drive is an implementation of last year's bill to reauthorize the Cap and Invest program. The efforts to address industry leakage and affordability ultimately came at the expense of the revenues that are generated by the Cap and Invest program and deposited in the cap and deposit into the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. Now, in normal years, we do see some ebb and flow in what the Cap and Invest program generates, but these amendments would lead to a reduction in GGRF revenues on the order of $2 billion annually. Now, that is critical because that would have the practical impact of eliminating funding for a number of key programs, including the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities Program, Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program, Low Carbon Transit Operations Program, as well as the AB 617 Community Air Grants Program, looking to address poor air quality in many of our disadvantaged communities. Now, I wanted to highlight further and offer you the specific details that are presented on your screen. The reason why these amendments ultimately lead to the zeroing out of that funding is not, to be clear, an intentional act of the California Resources Board, not an intentional act of Governor Newsom and his administration. Rather, it is a function of the design of prioritization on the expenditures from the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. As part of last year's reauthorization, there was an effort also to reinstitute an expenditure plan. And that expenditure plan contemplated about $4.2 billion of investment. And you'll see that all of the programmatic priorities that we have are listed in that tier 3. And so that means that tier 1, tier 2 have to be satisfied before tier 3 begins to see any investment. And so a program that gets collapsed to about a $2 billion program is a program that eliminates that tier 3 in order to live within the means of the program. And so as we learned about the impacts, we as an association focused on broad-based issue awareness and coalition building. You'll see here some of those initial steps that we took as an association to raise awareness of this issue. I will note for you that while we as an industry group received some briefings, and there were certainly briefings of legislators and legislative staff, the level of understanding on exactly what was on the table with the amendments, the impact to the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, not well understood. And so we as an industry had to mobilize, present that information. We were alerting many stakeholder groups that did not have the privilege of those briefings on the impact to their programs. And we ultimately drove toward what was the launch of a coalition. Broad cross-section of industry groups and environmental community groups, ultimately looking to raise awareness to what is on the table, what that would mean for our programs, and it gave way to the efforts that are on your screen. Now, of course, things like coalition letters, only the first entry point into coalition work, but a foundational point. What you'll see here is that we as an association brought together a stakeholder coalition of 70 organizations statewide, 50 regional entities, transit agencies within our membership, and had close concert with a number of external parties that didn't join our coalition for any number of reasons, but that helped amplify our message. A key one was in the transportation construction industry, groups like Transportation California, their member organizations, and groups like Rebuild SoCal Partnership, California Alliance for Jobs, UConn, and others who stood alongside us. Now, I mentioned things like letters serving as that foundational step. Of course, as a group looking to affect change, we had to mobilize and to actually drive toward direct engagement with legislators, with CARB board members, to raise concerns about the amendments, raise concerns about the programmatic impacts that we were experiencing. And what you see on your screen are some of those efforts that we led. Define legislative target lists, active engagement from us as an association, active engagement from our coalition partners. A lot of that work organized through things like lobby days, promoted through things like our action alerts. And then many organizations have contracted support in Sacramento. We have long had a transit caucus of lobbyists. We mobilized that caucus to ultimately engage on this issue on our behalf. Now, in the lead up to the board hearing at CARB, of course, that engagement also included direct engagement with California Air Resources board members to impact ultimately what would be the voting. Get to that in just a moment. Now, the work that we drove with the legislative audience really gave way to what you see on your screen here. Oversight efforts that were advanced by the Senate through their budget subcommittee that oversees climate investments, as well as by their policy committee that oversees environmental issues, environmental quality committee, pushback from a number of legislators. You'll see here 28 legislators submitted a letter voicing concerns with the amendments, and then also an assist from our Senate Transportation Committee. Now, I will note for you, you'll see noticeably absent, not much on the Assembly side. We'll come back to that in a moment because it is one of those things that colors the prospects as we move forward for advancing ultimately some solutions to the amendments. Now, what I wanted to highlight here is, of course, the amendments not just introduced, they've been considered, they have been voted on by the California Air Resources Board at a hearing that took place on May 29th. And so what you see here is that vote breakdown, a 10-3 split, 10 in favor, 3 in opposition, 1 member absent. That vote followed what was 8 hours of public comment, 8 hours of deliberation that I will note for you, largely colored by the work that we were doing as a coalition. I will note for you 150 commenters offered their opposition to the amendments, concerns about the programmatic impacts. 50 commenters supported the amendments and the message on affordability and industry leakage. Now, ultimately, that vote, as you saw, led to the adoption of the amendments. But what happened alongside the adoption was that those board members who were sensitive to our message, sensitive to the programmatic impacts, offered a series of changes to the board resolution that fell alongside that vote. One of the items that they offered was some direction to their executive officer to work with the governor, work with the Department of Finance, and ultimately the legislature to indicate the importance of stable funding for things like affordable housing and public transit investment. There was also a lot of discussion on this provision, MDI, Manufacturer Decarbonization Incentive. We won't go into details on that today unless you all have some questions on it. But here there was a lot of interest on potential impacts from an emissions perspective, potential impacts from a funding perspective for things like GGRF. And so there were some boundaries that were placed around that provision going into effect, some required reporting back to the CARB board before that provision went into full effect. Now, after the vote, we were very active in then coloring the public narrative around the vote. You'll see here that we as an association put out a press release alongside our coalition partners, and that gave way in part to the forms of press coverage that you see on your screen. Just a sample of what has been indicated. This, of course, not solely driven by us. A number of other groups also engage, also promoting the impacts of the amendments to key programs. But what we had was a chorus of voices raising concerns, raising the importance of finding progress forward. Now, at this stage, vote has been adopted, rather, amendments have been adopted. The amendments will go into place on September 1. And what we are anticipating that is that in fiscal year 26-27, there'll be some impacts to these GGRF supported programs, and that the full impact of impacts to GGRF supported programs will be felt in fiscal year 27-28. And so what we are doing as an association is getting the band back together. And we are making a push for the California legislature to consider its priorities for GGRF within a constrained funding environment to ultimately make whole those programs that got ongoing commitments, affordable housing, transit capital, transit operations, as well as those AB 617 programs. You'll see on your screen a letter that we submitted with 60 organizations on June 10th that was re-upped, that was resubmitted just this past Monday. We also have a letter focused on public transit, driven by our champions in the California State Legislature, just shy of 30 legislators, voicing the importance of not only addressing these ongoing investments in affordable housing, transit capital, transit operations, but also two SB 125 funds, which are monies that are administered at a regional level and ultimately pass through to local transit agencies, rail agencies for capital and operations. Now, just last week, we also hosted a press conference alongside our champions in the California State Legislature, a number of our coalition partners, to raise broader awareness of our push, our desire to see the legislature redress this issue as part of the budget process. That would be the natural course for them to engage in these conversations about GGRF revenues and prioritization of those funds. And what I'm happy to report is that we're starting to make progress. Now, I do want to be clear, we have not seen resolution to this issue, but what we have seen is the legislature has advanced what we call their two-party budget agreement. That is the Senate and the Assembly in agreement on a structure for the future budget that includes an acknowledgement of the need to do a number of things. But for us, very chiefly, is to revisit this conversation on GGRF expenditures. They have adopted placeholder language, meaning this item remains open, to revisit those expenditures, talk about prioritization, and we are using that policy window to then push forward on our key message of restoring this funding to those four programs I've been acknowledging, and then to also move forward on the appropriation for those SB 125 dollars. Now, as we move forward, again, we've got a coalition of 60 partner organizations. We're going to continue to develop that coalition, broaden our base, broaden our appeal. We're doing some data collection to help support our argumentation before the legislature. Heavy focus is going to be on jobs and affordability. Of course, that was a predicate for the advancement of the CARB amendments. Of course, we believe that we've got a strong case to make on both fronts in construction operations, maintenance jobs that we're driving. Also, too, on the affordability benefits that we're driving through investments like affordable housing and public transit. We're also going to be working to mobilize, continue to engage with the legislature so that this policy window that's been afforded in the two-party agreement is one that we can rightfully walk through and create opportunities for us as an industry and as a broader coalition. Now, I did want to highlight just some steps that I would recommend if folks are sympathetic, interested in getting involved on this front. Of course, we've got the formal support from SCAG on this matter. And that first request is to engage your state legislators. I mentioned at the top that we've not seen a lot of direct engagement from the Assembly. All of the engagement that we have noted has happened in the Senate. There have been individual Assembly members who've joined our efforts, but as a body, they've not been wholly engaged. What I would be recommending here is not only are you engaging with your state legislators, but that you're focused on your Assembly members with a direct ask that they make this a caucus priority. Yes, they have acceded to language that keeps this conversation open. That is just a promise for a future discussion. We need to make sure that that future discussion is had and is resolved in our favor. Your engagement with your Assembly members can help us get there. And the focus is on protecting those Tier 3 programs. We indicate what those are, and then appropriating that money for SB 125, which has been promised to regions, has been promised to agencies beginning in 2023, reaffirmed every 3 years thereafter. We need to find ourselves moving through with that investment at the state legislative level. The final thing that I would ask for some support on is helping us build our coalition. We've done I think a solid job of building out a base of environmental, labor, business, transportation, housing organizations. But really where we want to drive toward is further building that base of business, labor, and public health organization support. So if you've got contacts, you want to make connections, I am happy to serve as that repository, that pass-through for following through. And then also in your engagement, we hope that you'll continue to respond to our action alerts, mobilization opportunities that will be before us in the weeks ahead. And so that concludes my presentation. I know that I left us about 5 minutes of time. As I'm seeing that my next meeting is not yet likely to start right on time, I probably have an additional 5 minutes if that's the pleasure of this body. And I can probably hang out then till about 9:05. And so I'll pause here, take any questions from folks in the room.
Wow. Okay, that's a whole lot of information that you've given us. So now I will go ahead and ask our committee if they have any questions for you right now. Well, I have one while people are thinking of their questions. Well, you know what? We're going to go right to Patricia Locke Dawson because she has her hand up, and then we'll go with Jan Harnick. So go ahead, Patricia.
Hi, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Welcome, Michael. Appreciate it. Just to let you know, I do not have an E in my name. It's Locke, L-O-C-K, not L-O-C-K-E. Yeah, I wasn't able to attend the vote, but I was part of everything that went into it. Just so for the benefit of the group, I will say CARB board members felt very much in a very tough position. They were being asked to do two very different things by the legislature. They were being directed to STEM leakage, but then also fund these other programs. So they felt that I think the vote and the resolution sent back the request to the legislature to actually work through what their legislative priorities are for funding. And I think that's exactly where we are now. So I just want to let folks know.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, let's go to Jan Harnick.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all that information. A little whelming to me, but I think I can process as the day goes on. I'm just wondering if we can get that information that you'd like us to work with our assembly members on regarding the GGRF and the third tier programs. If we can get that condensed and sent to us, that would be, I think, extremely helpful.
Yeah, we're happy to do that. We'll be putting out some messaging guidance, some activation guidance later this week, and so I'll be sure to pass it along to SCAG staff and ask that they disseminate it to this body, and then more broadly as appropriate.
Thank you.
Okay, and I had a question on that. Why do you think the assembly is not picking this thing up and running with it or engaging with it?
Yeah, so I think the intellectual underpinnings of the inaction kind of stem back, call back to their leadership on the primary bill to reauthorize the cap and trade program, and that is AB 1207. What we have understood was that the two legislative champions in the assembly who helped drive that bill forward have been overtly supportive, overtly friendly of the amendments that CARB advanced. That meant that they were a bit reticent to engage in a conversation that would, I suppose, cross or undermine that support from the two legislative champions again in the assembly. I think as we though turn to this conversation on funding, that to me remains a bit of a confounding fact. Can certainly understand the inaction when there was, belief that we would be undermining the support from members of their body. But at this point, we are pivoting to a conversation about what do we do post fact, now that the amendments have been adopted. And I think it's there that the only kind of reasonable interpretation is that there's still a bit of a split perspective on what priorities should be within the House. And so what we're attempting to do in our engagement is to bring our priorities to the front of mind for that House and drive us toward progress. I will say that the first sign of forward progress on that has been that two-party agreement, which is stipulated to further conversation. But again, as I noted, that's a commitment to a conversation, not toward resolution. And so I think engagement with the Assembly helps us get us there.
Okay, thank you. And I see another hand raised. John, please.
Can you hear me, first of all?
Yes.
Are you able to hear me? No?
I can.
You can't hear me? All right.
We can.
Part of the time.
All right, I'll try this on regarding the tier 3. There's that includes money for electrical buses, zero putting the power for electrical buses, and if that money goes away, is CARB discussing reducing the impacts of requiring buses, electric buses, battery operated buses, zero emission buses?
Yeah, at this stage, CARB itself has not advanced that conversation. What I will say, however, is before we had even gotten wind of amendments to the Cap and Invest program, we were in conversation as an association with CARB staff about the challenges on the transition and the need for relaxation of regulation requirements. Those conversations were productive. I think what we're now wrestling with as an industry, as an association, is if these funds were to, in fact, fully go away, meaning we're not successful in restoring the funding this year, might there be a more aggressive positioning that we have to advance as an industry? And would suggest that at this stage, while we don't have firm direction, knowing generally where my members are, we would probably be asking for some broader relaxation of the requirements to right size within available means. And we would be talking about available means being functionally zero. And so that creates, I think, a bit of a quandary for CARB that we'd have to engage with them on over the coming months. But what I would state on this front is stay tuned. There is definitely going to be some broader engagement between us and CARB on those requirements moving forward.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, well, we have 3 minutes left. And Michael, is that going to give you enough time to head on to your next meeting?
Yes, perfect amount of time. You'll see some buses moving behind me. I'll be doing a board presentation in just a few minutes. So appreciate the time to be with you today, and I'll be following up this week with some follow materials and guidance on engagement. So thank you for
That
having
would be
me.
huge. That would be huge for us. So thank you very, very much. We've all gotten a lot more educated today.
Well, thank you.
All right, thank you, and have a good day.
You as well.
Okay, so we are now on to our consent. And all right, we asked if there were any speakers. Clerk, are there any people that have decided they want to ask questions from the public now, or still nobody?
Still do not have any hands raised via Zoom and no members of the public in person.
Okay, then do we have a motion?
Hagman moves 1 through 5.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry. What did you want to Kurt, what do you want to move? You said 1 through 5?
Thing two, I wanted to highlight, and Terry, this may have been in your report, but I wanted to just draw this board's attention to the next ad hoc board composition committee meeting. You all had taken a position a couple of when Metro Board Director Ara Najarian was here.
Okay. Now
11 a.m. They've been picking up the series.
Somebody is.
I can't hear that anything of what's being
That's
said
okay.
right
It
there.
wasn't, that was somebody's mic that should have been muted.
Perhaps did the supervisor meet items 1 through 4?
Yeah, that works.
Okay, then I'll second it.
Madam Chair, you're on mute now as well.
Okay, thank
There we
you.
go.
All right. I was trying to make it so that you guys didn't have to hear my grandfather clock bonging. So, okay, so we have items 1 through 4. Motion by Hagman, second by Harnick. And do we have any discussion on this? Okay, let's do a roll call vote, please.
Alan? Ryan Balius, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Wendy Bucknam?
Yes.
Ulysses Cabrera, Jenny Crosswhite,
Crosswhite, aye.
John Dutry,
Yes.
Margaret Finlay,
Finley, yes.
Gary Gardner,
Aye.
Mike Goodsell,
Yes.
Kurt Hagman,
Hagman, aye.
Jan Harnick,
Yes.
Laura Hernandez,
Hernandez, yes.
Patricia Luck Dawson,
Yes.
Ray Marquez,
Yes.
Gil Rebelar, Suli Saro, David Shapiro,
Yes.
Alan Wapner,
Yes.
Mark Warnick,
Warnick, aye.
thank you, Thomas Wong,
Yes.
Frank Yokoyama,
Yes.
thank you, Madam Chair. With 17 yes votes, 0 no votes, and 0 abstentions, the committee has approved the consent calendar.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, now we have 2 informational items. Let's see, the first one is number 5, mid-cycle legislative update. So we're going to see if we have any members of the public that would like to speak on this item.
Madam Chair, there are no hands raised via Zoom and no members of the public wishing to speak.
Okay, so no in-person speakers or no speakers from remote locations. Is that correct? Okay, I did not hear that.
Just to clarify, Madam Chair, are we doing item 5, which is the RENA time extension?
I don't know. I'm looking at this right now.
Madam Chair, you do have one action item today, and that's for item number 5. As Member Crosswhite just pointed out, it's a recommendation on Assembly Bill 2296 by Pappen. And then following that are your 2 informational items today, item number 6 and number 7.
Okay. The consent calendar was 1 through 4.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay, so that takes care of all of our action items, right, Kevin?
I think that
My apologies. There appears to have been a slight error in your script. So next is agenda item 5, which is the action item.
Okay,
Thank you,
yes.
Francisco.
Sorry, I'm looking at my script and so, okay, so go ahead with that.
Yes, I'll be providing the presentation for this item, and I'm just waiting for the PowerPoint presentation to be put up.
I wasn't given any PowerPoint presentations, but let me see if I can fix that.
Sorry, Jenny, like I said, I didn't see it here at all on my script and it's like, okay, well,
we apologize for
stepped
that,
on
Madam
it.
Chair. We're just pulling up the slide deck for agenda item number 5. So thank you very much for your patience with us.
That's okay. It gives everybody time to go out and get another cup of coffee.
I have it on my computer. I can share it from my screen. I'll go ahead and do that really quick.
Thank you.
David.
All right, apologies. So now that the PowerPoint is up, I'll provide an overview of AB 2296, which is authored by Assemblymember Diane Pappen and sponsored by the California League of Cities. So staff is requesting that the LCMC forward a support if amended position on this bill to the Regional Council. So AB 2296 would extend several key deadlines in the RENA process, and this bill focuses specifically on providing more time on the front end of the RENA cycle. So the period between when HCD issues the regional determination, which is the total amount of housing units that a region must plan for, and when local jurisdictions have to adopt compliant housing elements. So that would achieve the goal of providing additional time for regions and local governments to conduct the RENA process and for local jurisdictions to adopt their housing elements by the deadline without modifying the housing element deadline itself. So the bill revises th deadlines for three key milestones, which include the deadlines for subregions, including the subregional formation and the deadline for regions to provide the share to the subregions, the deadline for SCAG to develop the methodology, and the deadline for SCAG to provide the draft RENA allocation. So you may recall that this bill is a reintroduction of AB 650 from last year, which SCAG supported and passed both chambers before it was vetoed by the governor. And the primary sticking point in AB 650 was a provision that would have required HCD to provide specific feedback to local jurisdictions on how they can fix their housing elements if HCD found that a housing element didn't comply with housing element law. The governor felt that this requirement would have shifted the responsibility for creating compliant housing elements to the state. And also there were some cost concerns since it would be projected to have cost the state $11 million annually for HCD to conduct those reviews and provide the specific feedback. So in recognition of the fact that AB 650 was vetoed for the inclusion of that provision, AB 2296 excluded that provision, as well as several other provisions that modify deadlines from AB 650, but those were excluded because they were enacted through other bills that were signed into law, including AB 1275 and SB 233, both of which SCAG supported last year as well. While SCAG remains supportive of extending the front-end RENA timeline in concept, this bill does present complications specific to our region since our 7th RENA cycle is already underway under the current deadlines. And several of the milestones that this bill would shift are ones that our planning staff has already planned for. Starting with the subregional formation deadline changes, this bill would shift that deadline from June 2027 to December 2026. However, if the bill is signed into law in 2026, it would not take effect until January 1st, 2027. So that creates an ambiguity about which deadline would actually apply to our region. So we would request either an exemption or clarifying language for that deadline specifically. However, our biggest concern on the staff end are with the changes to the deadlines for SCAG to develop a draft RENA distribution methodology and to release a draft RENA allocation for the 7th cycle. So regarding the methodology development deadline, we're already on track to meet the proposed April 2027 deadline since it aligns with our current internal schedule. However, SCAG staff planned it that way to leave some wiggle room in case anything changes or to allow us up to a full year to work on releasing a draft and adopting a final RENA allocation. So the draft allocation deadline is really where the bill creates the most significant challenge for SCAG. Under AB 2296, the draft allocation deadline would move from April 2028 to October 2027, which is only 6 months after the proposed methodology deadline of April 2027. So this would only leave 6 months for SCAG staff to conduct the entire allocation of approval process, which includes public hearings and outreach, RENA subcommittee meetings, CEHD and regional council meetings, and a new 60-day HCD review and approval period that was mandated by recently implemented legislation, and also planning for additional SCAG meetings to adopt the final methodology by October 2028, which could potentially take even longer if HCD provides significant feedback requiring SCAG staff to amend and ask for reapproval from the board. So while these new deadlines are theoretically achievable in a vacuum, given that HCD approval is a required prerequisite before we can proceed with the draft allocation, it would essentially forced SCAG to significantly cut public engagement and rush through the comment and hearing processes and accelerate the uh, decision-making timeline. And SCAG is not alone in these concerns. The region, the MPOs for the San Diego area and SLOCOG, San Luis Obispo face similar issues as COGs that begin their RENA processes earlier in the statewide cycle. And for these reasons, staff is recommending that the LCMC forward a support if amended position to the regional council. Staff supports the policy goal of extending timelines to improve housing element compliance, which is consistent with our 2025-26 legislative platform. However, we are seeking amendments to ensure that the changes that the bill is making do not interfere with our agency's seventh cycle RENA process through an exemption for COGs whose RENA process is already underway. And to be proactive on this issue, we actually met with the League of Cities last week to share these concerns, which were well received. And if this recommendation is approved by the LCMC and adopted by the Regional Council, we plan to conduct additional advocacy on AB 2296 to ensure that the impacts to our 7-cycle RENA processes are minimized. And that concludes my remarks on this bill. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, what questions do we have? Okay, Wendy.
Yeah, okay. So just really quick, can you clarify the language that requires HCD to respond with some sort of direction? Did you say it was handled in another bill and that's why we didn't put it in this? Is that what did I misunderstand what you said? When they provide feedback that not approving or saying that our housing elements are not compliant, and we're asking for them to give us, statutory reasons why they're not compliant. Can you explain, because it's been removed that's been removed, has that been handled through another bill? And then I have a question about the timeline.
Address that first question. So AB 650, which contained these deadline modifications and was vetoed last year in 2025, that bill was vetoed because it contained the provision that would have required HCD to provide local jurisdictions with specific feedback on how to make their housing elements compliant if HCD determined that they were not already in compliance. So they would tell you specifically what you needed to do to bring your housing element into compliance. But because AB 650 was vetoed primarily because it included that provision, this year, Assemblymember Pappin excluded it from AB 2296 because she doesn't want her bill to be vetoed again. So the issue wasn't with the deadlines. So that's why she retain those timelines. And she just removed other timelines that were implemented by other bills. But as of right now, there are no other bills that contain that provision for HCD to provide specific feedback, just because we know from last year that the governor will likely veto any bill that contains that provision, which is unfortunate because from the staff perspective, I mean, we thought that it would be really valuable for a bill to make that change.
Yes. So that's hugely disappointing. So that's issue number one. And then on the amendments that are being requested, and we're saying support if amended, which oftentimes looks like support on a bill and not support if amended. I think that the timeline change is significant. Would it be more worthwhile politically to say oppose unless amended?
So yeah, as I mentioned, we met with the League of Cities last week and we're working with them in earnest. We want to come at it from a collaborative perspective. And based on the feedback that we got from our planning staff, we are able to accommodate these deadlines. But we supported AB 650 last year because it would have gone into effect on January 1st, 2026, allowing us to properly plan for these deadlines.
Right.
But now it's the case that this bill would apply on January 1st, 2027. So we're already planning our internal process. And so we still want to be collaborative, and basically what staff recommends we advocate for is for a straight up exemption from these deadline modifications for the seventh cycle, because ultimately we do still support changing these deadlines so that cities can have more time in between when SCAG provides the draft the RENA allocations, between that and when you can update your housing elements. So this bill still would provide benefits for local jurisdictions so that you have more time to do that process, and which is why we still support the bill, because it contains deadlines from last year which we supported. So it might create an inconsistency if we supported these deadline modifications last year, now we're opposing them. So that's why we're recommending support if amended.
That makes sense. Appreciate that explanation. But we really need this amendment for to exempt us, because yeah, I mean, we've got the one, probably, I don't want to compare us to others, but I mean, let's face it, we do a significant amount of detail public outreach that I think is second to none. And again, in the spirit of transparency, which I know the state wants for our residents, this is going to be very important to see if we need this amendment of exemption. So appreciate the comments, and I'll move if there's no other comments. I mean, I'm happy to move the position.
Wendy, we have one more comment from Ryan.
Okay.
But then we'll let you make that motion. Oh, and Gary, you want to speak too? You're on
I
mute.
have my hand up. I don't know why.
Oh, you
can't
know
see
what?
me.
Your hand is the same color as the
As
picture
my background, yep, I
on
see
your
it.
wall. So
Yeah.
either change the color of your hand or get a new picture.
Yeah,
Okay,
paint my
we'll go
hand.
with Gary, then with Ryan. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I see it's kind of missing there too. No, Wendy made some great points there, and I was intrigued by her position of oppose unless amended. You know, having worked in the legislative process for as many years as I did, there's a subtle difference there, but I think it works. But it sounds to me like staff in their answer to her have a little bit of a workaround to it, so that doesn't quite make me as concerned. But since this is a League of California Cities proposal, and Lord knows why they're pushing for this, I like the idea of the exemption around it, but there's enough cross-pollination between us and the members here and the members of the regional council and league stuff that shouldn't we be able to get this through and work with them collaboratively on this? I mean, we're all pretty much on the same page. I hate going crosswise with the league. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And so is there anything that staff would want us to do, especially those of us that are somewhat active in league policies? I serve on the division board for Riverside County, so there's some thoughts there. So
Certainly, yeah, and so we did, as I mentioned, we met with the league, with the statewide league last year, and so we can definitely follow up with the contact for our specific regions down here to make sure they're aware of our concerns. But yes, you're right. We do want to work collaboratively with them, and our feedback was well received by them. So we want to continue to have a collaborative relationship and not. It's from our perspective, it's not at the level of opposing, and of course at the regional council, if the recommendation needs to change, that is something that you all are able to do. So we would reflect that in the staff report if for some reason we think that it would be best to change the recommendation at that point.
Okay, we have a question from Ryan and then from Jan.
Thank you. I've got just a quick question in regards, can you tell me, does staff feel that 6 months is an adequate extension? I know that sometimes the wheel of government turns a little slow.
Yeah, so I mean, when we presented our staff recommendation for AB 650 last year, contain the exact same extensions. And so we still think that that would be an adequate amount of time for the extension. I mean, it provides an extension both for regions to conduct the process, but also for local jurisdictions to be able to work on your housing element updates by the deadline. So there's always going to be a little bit of trade-off between giving the more time at the regional level to conduct the process and balancing that with the amount of time that local jurisdictions get to adopt their housing elements. But without modifying the housing element deadline itself, we do think that these deadline changes would give a good balance between allowing SCAG to have enough time to conduct our process here and for all your local jurisdictions then to be able to update your housing elements once the regional council has approved the final RENA allocation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Jan.
Thank you very much. From what I'm hearing, I don't see us in an oppositional situation with Cal Cities. It sounds like we're working together decently with them. My question is, when is it that we might find, when we might have access to the amended wording?
So, given that we had our first conversation with the league last week, we'd be hoping to try and fast track this since we are approaching the July recess. But at this point, it may not be something that is amended until the legislature comes back from recess, but it would be our hope that we can try and amend it in by the end of June. But it'll just depend if we're able to get everyone's buy-in, that including the author's office and as well. So once we loop them in and we let them know our concerns and we also share our concerns with leaderships, policy staff, and all the other relevant parties that need to be made aware of our concerns. And, hopefully at that point, we'll be able to get the amended language this month, but more than likely it may be until after the July recess.
Okay, thank you. And I'm wondering, is there any way that, I need to, I guess, look at who all is on this bill, but is there any way that we might help, we as members of this body might help move the needle a little, getting that amended language moving forward?
Certainly. I mean, I would definitely encourage everyone to reach out to your League of Cities rep. And for you, Member Harnick, CalCog is working with us on these amendments since there are some other cogs that have these concerns, as I mentioned, like SACOG and SLOCOG. We've been working collaboratively with them as well, and they already have some draft language that would exempt SCAG, SACOG, and SLOCOG from AB 2296, the deadline modifications that it's making. So, there's several avenues for you all to provide additional advocacy on this.
Okay, so and please keep us posted so that we can move this. So I appreciate the information. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Now, are there any other questions or are we going to go to Wendy for the motion?
I'll motion staff recommendation and appreciate the additional dialogue and explanation. It was very helpful.
I'll second it.
Mark Warnick, second.
Pick whoever you want. I saw Gary and Mark. So they both are real fast seconders. So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any public comment on this at all?
Madam Chair, there are no members of the public in person and no hands raised via Zoom.
Okay, then let's go ahead and have a roll call vote, please.
Ryan Balius.
Bayless, aye.
Bayless, thank you. Wendy Bucknam.
Aye.
Jenny Crosswhite.
Crosswhite, aye.
John Dutry.
Yes.
Margaret Finlay.
Finlay, yes.
Gary Gardner.
Aye.
Mike Goodsell.
Yes.
Kurt Hagman.
Hagman, aye.
Jan Harnick.
Yes.
Laura Hernandez.
Hernandez, yes.
Patricia Lock Dawson.
Aye.
Ray Marquez.
Yes.
David Shapiro.
Yes.
Alan Wapner.
Yes.
Mark Warnick.
Warnick, aye.
Thank you. Thomas Wong,
Wong, yes.
Frank Yokoyama.
Yes.
Madam Chair, with 17 yes votes, 0 no votes, and 0 abstentions, the committee has approved the motion on item number 5.
Okay, thank you. And staff, please keep us apprised of this because it's really going to affect us, and see if there's anything that we can do, let us know. Okay, so the next two items will be informational. Number 6 is the mid-cycle legislative update, and number 7 is Build America 250.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I can kick off this item as well. So the California legislature is now a little bit past midway through the second year of the 2025-26 legislative session. And so as such, several key deadlines have passed, including the deadline for bills to move out of policy and fiscal committees and off of the floor in their house of origin. Next slide, please. So given that we're about midway through the cycle, staff identified 7 bills that remain active that are related to SCAG's core issue areas. So today's update will focus on these 7 bills, including SB 675, SB 866, SB 1123, SB 1361, SB 1414, AB 1777, and AB 2168. So we will be providing an informational update and requesting feedback from the committee on these bills. And I'll be joined by my colleague Jorge Zavala, who will provide a presentation and step in on a few of these. But I'll now run through each of these bills.
Okay, before you do, I see Kurt's hand is up. Kurt, do you want this answered now or later?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just real quickly on number 5, I don't know if SCAG's willing to take a motion or position on that, but it's really picking on the autonomy of San Bernardino's. It's a redistricting bill for San Bernardino County and only San Bernardino County. All the local cities and obviously the county opposes it. Just didn't know it's on there as a informational item, but wonder if there's any interest for SCAG to formally take a opposed, less amended approach to that. It's already made it out of the first house.
Okay, so
If I may, so we have it included as an informational item, but it is, of course, in the purview of the committee to pull any of these items and make a recommendation for support or opposition or otherwise, if that's the direction that the committee thinks it's right.
okay. Anybody have any thoughts on that other than Kurt?
I would
Okay,
like to hear more from Kurt if we could.
Should we get just a point of order? Do we wait for the presentation and then take action after the bill? What's the order of events here? Mr. Hagman, you're always good at keeping us on our toes.
We can hear the staff report first, and then we can.
Okay.
It's a receive and file item. Obviously, I would like to make a recommendation at the end of it,
Okay.
but get the report first.
Okay,
Cool. Thank you.
let's do that.
Happy to run through the slides and give an update on each of these bills. And then if there are any items that want to be pulled or if there are any questions or feedback on others, we'd be happy to take those at the end or after the presentation for each bill, whichever the committee prefers. So starting off with SB 675 by Senator Steve Padilla from Imperial County. This one would restructure the Imperial County Air Pollution Control District. Specifically, it would replace the current 5-member board of supervisors with a 10-member board consisting of 1 county representative, 5 city representatives, and 4 public members, with subject matter expertise in air quality. The bill would also impose enhanced transparency requirements, including a standalone website, expanded reporting on permits and enforcement, and annual air quality reporting. Notably, SB 675 currently would also prohibit the district as it currently is governed from issuing Title V permits, which are federal air quality related permits that must be issued to facilities that are major sources of air pollution. And they would be prohibited from doing so until March 1st, 2028, when the new governing structure would take into effect. Senator Padilla introduced this bill to address severe air quality challenges in Imperial County and also to improve accountability and community representation for this board. However, there have been concerns raised that the temporary prohibition on the issuance of major permits, the Title V permits, could delay facility maintenance and compliance with federal Clean Air Act requirements. And additionally, aside from the issue of Title V permits, Imperial County remains concerned that this bill would reduce county accountability and rural representation, create new fiscal and administrative burdens, and impose unfunded mandates without a real implementation plan for this bill. And the county has expressed that any reform to their air pollution control district should be developed collaboratively, include funding, preserve local accountability and rural representation, and should avoid imposing unfunded mandates. And that's it for SB 675.
Okay, thank you.
So the next bill is SB 866 by Senator Catherine Blakespear, which would expand homelessness-related reporting requirements in local housing elements for jurisdictions that do not receive HAP funding. HAP funding is currently limited to local continuum of cares, counties, and cities with populations above 300,000. So this is only 14 cities. And so this bill would effectively impose these additional housing element requirements on cities with populations under 300,000. And so the bill requires that jurisdictions that do not qualify for HAP funding to include detailed data on their unhoused populations, including population size, the duration of homelessness, and other outcome-related data such as exits to permanent housing and returns to homelessness. It also requires jurisdictions to describe actions taken to connect individuals to services, coordination with regional partners, and strategies to reduce and prevent homelessness. So the senator argues that this bill will fill in data gaps in statewide homelessness data and improve coordination and accountability by targeting jurisdictions that are not currently subject to HAP reporting requirements. However, opposition led by the League of Cities argues that the bill imposes additional mandates and reporting requirements on local governments without addressing the structural issues in regional planning. And instead, Cal City suggests that all local governments should be required to participate in developing and improving what is called the regionally coordinated homelessness action plan, which jurisdictions that receive HAP funding must create to outline how they will allocate their HAP funding. And currently, local jurisdictions may be invited to participate in that process of creating that document, but are not required to do so. And even if invited, cities are not required to participate in the approval process for the regional action plan to be adopted and therefore serve mostly in an advisory capacity. And moving on to the next bill, I'll hand it over to my colleague Jorge.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. SB 1123, authored by Senator Scott Wiener, aims to modify how California state agencies evaluate the economic impact of proposed regulations under the Administrative Procedure Act. Under current law, agencies assess the cost of regulations on businesses, consumers, jobs, and the broader economy, with additional analysis required if impacts exceed a $50 million threshold. The bill would require agencies to also account for cost and benefits when calculating economic impact. By incorporating these factors, SB 1123 may reduce the likelihood that regulations meet the major regulation threshold, potentially streamlining the rulemaking process while providing a more comprehensive assessment of a regulation's overall effects. Supporters consist of labor groups such as the California Federation of Labor Unions. Opposition is made up of business groups and industry groups such as California Building Industry Association. This bill would apply to any state agency that would adopt any regulations under the APA, including CARB, Caltrans, HCD, and others. And this current bill is pending in the Assembly Economic Development Committee, where it is waiting its hearing. Next slide, please. I'll pass it back over to my colleague, David.
Next up is SB 1361, authored by Senator Maria Elena Durazo and sponsored by LA Metro, which addresses transit-oriented development and local government actions affecting transit projects following last year's SB 79. So this bill originally would have exempted jurisdictions from SB 79 upzoning requirements for certain transit stops that are not operational or in service as of January 2026, if that jurisdiction adopted a policy by January 2026 to complete at least 10,000 housing units, 50% of which must have been income restricted by January 1st, 2032. And initially, the bill faced heavy opposition, but it recently was significantly amended to no longer alter existing housing requirements, but rather to prohibit local jurisdictions from opposing transit projects, excuse me, to avoid upzoning requirements that are tied to SB 79. Specifically, under the new language, local governments would be prohibited from requesting service reductions, delaying or denying transit approvals based on density impacts, or withdrawing support for federal funding due to SB 79 related land use changes. It's important to note, however, that jurisdictions could still remain neutral or oppose transit projects for reasons other than SB 79, but Metro sponsored this bill to ensure that their wide portfolio of transit projects can move forward without obstruction from land use concerns, particularly given the large scale of transit investments that are underway in Los Angeles County. So opponents have argued that the bill is overly prescriptive and limits local control, while supporters have emphasized the need to protect major transit investments and statewide housing goals. And while the provisions contained in the amended version may still not sound appealing, a range of groups, including environmental advocates, housing organizations, and even sponsors of SB 79 Streets for All and Abundant Housing Los Angeles, formally withdrew their opposition after these amendments were introduced. And it's also worth noting that Cal Cities, which had previously opposed SB 1361, also changed its position to neutral after recent amendments, recognizing that the current language is workable and no longer necessitates opposition. However, the League still continues to request that the legislature consider substantive reforms to SB 79. So that is it for SB 1361. And moving on to the next slide. Next is SB 1414 by Senator Eloise Gomez Reyes, which would establish an independent citizens redistricting commission in San Bernardino County. For context, in 2020, San Bernardino County voters approved Measure J, which required the county to create a redistricting commission. And in response, the county created a 7-member advisory commission appointed by the board and other members appointed by a Superior Court judge to make recommendations to the board, which retain the authority to modify the advisory committee's recommendations and ultimately to adopt the final maps. Instead, this bill would require the county to create a 14-member commission that would be responsible for drawing supervisorial district boundaries after each census and transferring that authority from the county board of supervisors to this new commission. Commissioners would be selected through a structured and partially randomized process with strict eligibility and conflict of interest rules. And it would also be required to conduct public outreach, hold hearings, and provide testimony and map drawing with final approval, requiring at least 9 votes from the 14 members. The author and bill sponsors argue that this bill promotes fairness, transparency, and community trust in the redistricting process and would bring San Bernardino County's redistricting process in line with other large counties. However,
and I see Kurt has his hand up now. Kurt, is this the one you were talking about?
Yes, Madam Chair. Just when it talks about the selection of the 14 independent, and this is the information I wish the staff would have put into this, it is done by partisan requirements. So it goes to the register of voters. if the current district has majority Republican or Democrat members, that's how they have to select them versus just a neutral. We're nonpartisan at the county level. And this was put in by the voters, voted this current system in just 4 years ago. And that's why they're like, hey, you're overturning the will of the voters at this point and making a political process out of a very neutral process right now that was selected by the voters. It will require party affiliation and stuff like that, which we don't have currently in our thing. That's why we were opposed.
Okay, thank you. Should we wait? Let's finish this up and then take that up as a potential position on that.
Yeah, certainly. I just have a little bit more on this one.
Okay, sorry.
No worries. But as member Hagman mentioned, the San Bernardino County Board of Supervisors is the primary opposition to this bill, and they've expressed concerns about the costs, the administrative burden, and potential legal risks that would stem from implementation of this legislation. So we're presenting this bill for informational purposes today because while our legislative platform is silent on measures of this nature, our colleagues from the County of San Bernardino requested that the legislative committee that this be presented to the legislative committee so that the committee could be made aware of the proposal due to its potential far-reaching impacts if similar legislation is introduced in other parts of the region. And that's it for my presentation. We have a few more bills that we want to get through.
And I have comments on other bills, so.
Okay, do you want to, and keeping in mind that we're at 9:47 right now. Are you saying, Wendy, you have comments on another couple of bills that he's going to explain?
No, I thought we were waiting till the end, and then that's why I asked for point of order, because I wanted to know when would be the right point to ask questions. So I didn't do it as we were going through the bills, but I do have questions on prior bills commented on. So just let me know when's the appropriate time.
Okay, so do we have any more bills you have to go through?
We can quickly go through those.
Yeah, let's quickly go through those and then get to Wendy's questions.
Margaret, I'm going to speak about one of them that's already been spoken on too, that impacts Imperial County. I'm just like her trying to hold the fire.
Okay, thank you, David. I'll go real quick. AB 1777, authored by Assemblymember Robert Garcia, authors the California Air Resource Board to regulate emissions from indirect sources such as warehouses, ports, and other facilities that attract vehicle traffic. Under existing practice, the sources are primarily regulated at the local level by air districts, but the bill clarifies ARB's authority to adopt the regulations at statewide level to help meet federal and state air quality standards. The bill would allow ARB to implement a range of compliance strategies, including zero emission infrastructure, cleaner technologies, and mitigation measures. AB 1777 seeks to create a more consistent statewide framework for addressing emissions tied to goods movement, while also raising consideration around regulatory scope, coordination with local agencies, and potential economic impacts. Supporters consist of environmental groups such as the bill's co-sponsors, Earth Justice, American Lung Association, and Natural Resource Defense Council. Opposition is made up of business and agricultural groups. This is the only bill that we are bringing forward today that is failed to make it out of the House of Origin, but we are bringing it forward because the author intends to reintroduce next year.
Okay.
And I'll go through the last bill quickly. So finally, we have AB 2168 by Assemblymember Buffy Wicks, which would revise the active transportation program to prioritize projects that improve access to public transit. So it would expand the program goals to include increasing the share of trips that connected transit. It would introduce new project selection criteria tied to transit access and encourage the use of additional funding sources such as the State Transportation Improvement Program. And additionally, the bill would also establish stronger accountability measures, including incentives and penalties for timely project delivery beginning in 2028. So our SCAG planning staff reviewed this bill and noted that it would potentially duplicate existing criteria for the ATP, complicate the program, and create challenges for smaller jurisdictions in meeting delivery timelines. And further, we reached out to our partners, including OCTA and RCTC, and they're concerned that broadening the uses that are eligible for STIP funds to include active transportation projects could result in reduced funding for priority multi-year capital projects that they're working on. And that's it for this bill, and we'd be happy to take any questions, comments, and feedback on any bill that we've presented on.
Okay, let's go to Wendy first, and then I see Alan. Go ahead.
Kurt had a comment that was specific, so I don't want to step on his toes regarding one of the bills. So he was already commenting. So Margaret, I just want to be considerate of that because I'm not sure he was done.
Okay. Kurt, are you done?
I mean, I could go through all the list of the cities and the labor groups and public safety. Basically, everyone in the county is opposed to SB 1414. But I know we submitted that to SCAG. And if there is a motion, I'd love to see it opposed on this.
Okay. Wendy?
Okay. So comment really quick, going back to SB 675. I think it's curious on this one that, and I think we need to bring it back for a position. I don't know if we want to do it here, but the city of Imperial is the sponsor, but this Imperial County Board of Supervisors opposes the bill. And this, I think, could, I'm not sure the ramifications of this, but I think we need to consider a position on it. SB 866, this is strongly opposed specifically by many cities, actually. And so I think that we need to consider whether we do it now, we bring it back, a position of oppose on SB 866. I'm keeping my comments short.
Thank you.
But I have, my comments are longer than that, but I'm going to keep them short. Let's see. I agree with Kurt on the position on 1414. And then on 2168, the thing that concerns me about this one is that this seems to take, I think we need to bring this one back and have some discussion on a position on this one. Because I see some challenges in that it is in conflict with our Connect SoCal plans in some areas. So I'd like to have a more thorough discussion on that. And then on, sorry, I skipped one, SB 1361. I think it would be great to get some public comments on July 2nd on the SCAG SB 79 map, which just came out. And I know the public comments were due on the 12th. So if we could just get, maybe if we could get a report on that at our July 2nd meeting, that would be terrific. And then finally, I would just like an update on 1087. I had given Francisco a heads up that I would ask what the status is on that bill. I don't see it included here. I know it probably wasn't part of the scope. And that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Okay, then let's just go right to Alan. Go ahead, Alan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also want to join the discussion on 1414. From a policy level, Senator Reyes has a history of introducing bad legislation that she can't gather support from her colleagues, and so she restricts it to her district. If it was good policy, then it would be adopted statewide. What's ironic is that she says she's doing this for to eliminate political kinds of pressure, but yet the bill is inherently political in itself, and that it's directed towards one district and not towards all districts. So I would support Kurt and make a second that we get a strongly opposed position to 1414.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
I've got some comments about the first one. That's mine down in Imperial County. As was shared, yeah, Imperial County has opposed this Senate bill from Stephen Padilla. And you'll note that Imperial City likes the idea. City of Holville has written a letter of opposition, and they're maybe Raleigh too, but I don't want to speak for Raleigh. So we're kind of a divided camp down here, obviously, right?
Okay, clearly.
I'll share is this, just one statement about it. You let it.
Okay, Jan.
This expansion, here's the thing, this expansion, this addition of 4 public representatives to an already functioning, well-represented part of our valley isn't needed. It says in your text here, David, that it's a 5-member county board of supervisors. That's not quite accurate. It's 5 members of the county. It's not the board of supervisors that constitute that board. They're appointed individuals. I'm looking at the list on my computer. I know these people, and they're well representing our valley as it is. It's my way of thinking, and I don't want to speak too far. But anyway, Imperial has the data center issue. They wouldn't mind seeing more environmentalists on the panel. Makes sense? Right? I think that's the play being made here by Lydia. So it's a sticky wicket in Imperial County.
Okay, thank you. Jan.
Thank you. Both the Imperial County and the San Bernardino bills smell bad. It just seems to me like there is another mission here that is being attempted at. It doesn't seem it doesn't seem very pure, anything I'm hearing here. And it's really bothersome to me. And I don't understand if it's in the scope of SCAG or not. But when there is the type of overreach that Sacramento is attempting right now in Imperial County and in San Bernardino, it just smells bad. It makes me wonder what really is their agenda. So I think it deserves to be looked at very closely. But is it SCAG? I don't know, but this is what I do know. It smells bad.
Okay, all right, agreed. Okay, so we have very little time left. Is this so time sensitive that we have to make a decision on these bills right now? Or should we go ahead and bring this back? Oh, gee, we don't have a meeting in July. Tell me what to do here, Kevin.
So, Madam Chair, we oftentimes will bring bills like this for informational purposes to gauge where the committee is at and to gauge where the committee's interest is. And just as many of the members have alluded to, that a couple of these bills are not within like the framework of our legislative platform, but they are bills that get members of the committee the most animated. So we do bring them to the committee so that if you feel it's necessary to take a position on that, you're within your right to do that. And then what we would do if you didn't want to do that, we flag these bills for the committee for future meetings as well. So member Bucknam said that she wanted to have some increased discussion on a different one. So we've made notes of that to bring it back at a future meeting. So for a couple of these, we would really look for the strong leadership of our Ledge Committee on like, do you want to take a position on this bill that impacts the Imperial County? Or do you want to take a position on this bill that impacts San Bernardino County or not? We don't have that in our legislative platform, but there have been instances where the legislative committee has wanted to do that, and that is within your purview if you want to do that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Kevin. I see Kurt's hand is up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'll make the formal motion to oppose 675 and 1414. And Kevin, my sense is this: remember, SCAG is a representative body of local government, and when you see, as you know, for our staff to see when there is erosion of that power on the local side, I would even argue 1777 is erosion of local control from the Air Resources Board to CARB, and we can see all the fun stuff come out there. But I would hope that we would be able to take more of that, even though it may not be in our charter as far as policy, we are primary and foremost a body of local cities and counties that should be always fighting for that autonomy and collective body for that. But I'll make the motion to oppose 675 and 1414 at this point.
Okay, Wendy, I see your hand up.
Would you take a friendly amendment? I support that, and add, add the one that I noted.
866?
SB 866.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. I have that on my list too. Thank
Because that has to do with housing elements, and frankly, I think that is in our purview, but yeah, that's just me.
Yeah.
So if you would take a friendly amendment, I'll second that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Although I think Alan may have seconded one of your bills.
Yeah, I seconded his initial motion, but I'll go ahead and accept the amendments as well.
Okay. Well, we got 2 seconds and thirds and whatever. So, do we have any more discussion on this?
And this is Robert Rodier Potter, serving as general counsel. Since this is a information item, I do ask you that you move this to action items before making a motion.
And do we have to have a motion to move it to action items?
Can that be part of the motion?
A point of order, Madam Chair, with all due
Yes,
respect to our attorney, as long as it's listed on the agenda anywhere, we can vote on it. You don't have to move it on the agenda. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, I haven't heard of it either. Jenny?
Can you just clarify? We have 3 bills in here now. I just want to make sure that I know. I tracked the first 2, but then what else was added to it? I just want to make sure that I know what I'm voting on, since these weren't on there originally as action items.
It had, the housing element, the Blakespeare one?
Yes, Jenny. I added the SB 866, which has to do with housing element, unhoused populations, and adding requirements on reporting of the point in time count to cities that are not receiving the funding, the HHAP program funding. And so this adds more complications to cities' housing elements that is not needed. And that's the reason I'm opposing. And there's 58 individual cities that are already sending letters of opposition, as well as the League of Cities.
And so then just to clarify from legal counsel, so even though this was listed on these items were all listed on the agenda as no action, we are able to take action today.
Since it has been posted on the agenda, it is within the board's ability to make a motion on this. I do recommend that you combine all 3 into one, as well as the action to move on these items.
Okay. So do we have clarification then? We are going to move all of these 3 to action items and be able to vote on them. And we have oppose on all 3. That would be 675, SB 866, and SB 1414. Is that kind of the sum and substance? Okay, then clerk, could you go ahead and do a roll call on this?
Ray Bailius,
Bayless, yes.
Wendy Bucknam,
Yes.
Jenny Crosswhite,
Yes.
John Dutry,
Yes.
Margaret Finlay,
Finley, yes.
Gary Gardner,
Aye.
Mike Goodsell,
Yes.
Kurt Hagman,
Agman, aye.
Jan Harnick,
Yes.
Laura Hernandez,
Yes.
Patricia Lock Dawson,
Aye.
Ray Marquez,
Yes.
David Shapiro, David Shapiro,
David, you're on mute.
Alan Wapner.
Shapiro, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Shapiro. Alan Wapner,
Yes.
Mark Warnick, Mark Warnick, Thomas Wong,
Yes.
Frank Yokoyama.
Yes.
Madam Chair, with 16 yes votes, 0 no votes, and 0 abstentions, the committee has approved the motion on the 3 bills stated.
Okay, thank you. All right, we are now at 10:05. I have a feeling we are going to be losing people. It's been a great meeting. I appreciate the dialogue. How do we have anything that is so time sensitive that we can't do something here?
The next item was just an update on the surface transportation reauthorization. So all the information is in the report. I love giving you guys updates, but I am available if anyone has any questions on that. And then also just really quick, I wanted to touch on Member Bucknam's question with regards to request an update on 1087. That bill made it out of the Senate floor at the end of last month, and it is scheduled to be heard in Assembly Transportation this coming Monday. It's chaired by Assemblymember Lori Wilson. We have been working steadily with all of the advocates that have opinions on the matter, including most recently with the BIASC and CBIA. We value their partnership, and we were provided with a number of amendments, 10 in total, 9 of which we have worked into the bill, recognizing the strong partnership and their concerns. So we will continue to work together with all advocates to make sure that everyone is comfortable with the bill as it moves forward.
Okay, does anybody have anything else that they would like to question on this? Okay, so I think we've kind of rushed through the last part, but we've had a pretty meaty meeting here. We are dark in July, and I believe we come back on, is it the 18th, 17th of August? Anybody
That's
see
it.
that on their calendar?
Tuesday, August 18.
Okay, Tuesday, August 18th is when we will have our next meeting. And does anybody have anything else they want to discuss or? So, okay, then all I can say is happy semi-quincentennial this year on our July 4th. And I will look forward to seeing all of you in the near future. And thank you for your comments, everybody, and your flexibility with our meeting today. So unless there's nothing else, then we are going to adjourn and we can push that little guy who's walking out the red door and leave. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All
Thank
right.
you.
Bye.